Salutations, mortals and children of the night. I am the Vampire Otaku, and this video is going to be all about vampires. This is my full hardcover collection of the Vampire Chronicles by Anne Rice, including the new Chronicles vampires, which is Pandora and Victoria. So, let's get into it. We're going to start off by showing each cover of each hardcover book and just having, a brief talk about what I've read or what I haven't read. I haven't read all of the books in the collection. It's like 15, but I'm slowly working my way through it. I've been reading all this manga behind me too, which has been an ordeal, but a good one. So we'll start off with the classic and the one that got me into it all, and that's Interview with the Vampire. This book was written in the 70s, I believe. And this is Anne Rice when she was younger. And I definitely read this book. I actually watched the movie first. It was incredible. I had no idea that Tom Cruise could have that much range. The dynamic with Brad Pitt was incredible. And I'm really excited about the Interview with the Vampire series. It's going to be coming out on Blu-ray in a couple of months. And I pre-ordered it. I'm absolutely gonna rewatch it and give my thoughts on it. Next one is The Vampire Lestat. And a lot of people that have watched the movie The Queen of the Damned don't realize that a lot of the content in that movie is from this book and not the Queen of the Damned book, which is really interesting. This book is incredible, hearing about Lestat's early life as a human and how he got changed into a vampire. And I'll do my best not to give spoilers, but this is probably one of my favorites out of the Chronicles. Next we have The Beautiful Queen of the Damned. Definitely a million times better than the movie, but the movie was fun in its own right. It was just very different, and a lot of the characters that were amazing in this book just didn't make their way in the movie. And I always have a problem when there's important characters missing. Next we have The Body Thief. This book was very fun and sometimes predictable, sometimes unpredictable. This is when Anne Rice cut her hair. Yeah, this book was a lot of fun to read. I actually had a really good time with it. This is Men Not the Devil. This book was good, but it just wasn't as good as the other books. It had a lot to kind of live up to. Big shoes to fill. Also, little flex here, this is my signed book. Granted, I bought it used and it wasn't signed for me. I always wanted a signed Anne Rice book. I always wanted to meet her. So this is the best that I can get now. This is The Vampire Armand. This book was a fever dream. It was insane. Armand had such a crazy life. His mentor was really cool, his maker, and I really enjoyed this book, and I implore all of you to read this one. Read all of them, to be honest. Now we're gonna get into a lot of books that I didn't read. I haven't read Merrick. I haven't heard a lot of great things about it. Like Louis has a personality change in it, and some other things happen. I don't know anything about it, so I just know that I'm happy to have it as a hardcover. And these are the new Chronicles. We have Vittorio, an Italian vampire. I don't really know much about it. And then we have Pandora. I know a little bit about her character from earlier books. And I like the way this book looks. It's really nice. I'm excited to read these little ones. Next we have Blood and Gold. I haven't read this one, but I think it's Marius' story. The maker of Armand, I believe. So I'm really excited to read this one. And it's a really beautiful book. I love the gold and the old European style oil painting. Very nice. We have Blackwood Farm, very shiny and gold. Very beautiful book. I believe that this one is probably one of the least vampire oriented books of the Chronicles, but I haven't read it, so I don't know. But I think the story is told by Lestat, but it's a witch's story from the Mayfair family and the farms and whatnot. So I'm excited to check this out. Blood Canticle is probably a lot of people's least favorite book of the Chronicles. I think it's really beautiful in terms of the way that it looks. I read this as a kid because I saw it in my library, and I didn't exactly know who Anne Rice was. I just watched her movies, and movie at the time, Interview with the Vampire. I heard some lyrics in a metal song by a band called Treyu, and he was talking about, blood, tears in my eyes, I'm an Anne Rice novel come to life. And I was like, who's Anne Rice? And I didn't realize I knew who she was, but I didn't know who she was. I didn't know her by name, I just read the books because they look really cool. Apparently Lestat's character kind of changes in that story, and it just threw a lot of people off. So I'm excited to read it again because I don't remember it that well when I read it as a kid. Then we're down to the last 3 that Anne Rice made. A lot of people like this novel. They said it was kind of like a redemption arc for Lestat and the Vampire Chronicles themselves. I don't really know anything about it. I just heard it was really good, so had to check it out. I want to say the cover is a little boring, but it feels really nice. It feels like velvet. It actually has a texture, so it's really interesting. And black and red is beautiful too. Obviously, I'm a fan of it. Then we have Anne Rice, Prince Lestat, Atlantis. I heard that Anne Rice really wanted to add Atlantis or talk about the lost city of Atlantis in a story, and she kind of just put this together. I heard mixed reviews about it, so I'm excited to read this as well. And this is the last one. It also has that really nice velvety texture. Even though this cover is a little boring, it's kind of beautiful. It's beautiful in its simplicity. The red and gold is really beautiful. I'll say that a lot of people said that this seemed like it was going to be the last in the Chronicles, and it kind of was, even though Anne Rice was apparently working on some more stuff. But apparently this was a really good way to wrap things up, so I'm excited to read the rest of these and get to this point, see what happens to all of our favorite characters, and kind of see where Anne Rice's head was at when she was writing it, and how she was feeling, and how her writing developed throughout the years, because we start from the 70s, and this book came out in like 2016, 17? Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong, but it's kind of recent. So these are all the Vampire Chronicles. I really enjoy the series. I love Lestat. He's probably one of my favorite vampires of all time. He's very charismatic. If I could say he was a zodiac sign, I'd say he was a Leo for sure. I love the new show. I love how flamboyant and how evil, but also how just and fair he is. He's a very complex and just convoluted character, and he's so fun and so larger than life when you see him or when you read about him. And if you haven't read any Anne Rice books, I highly recommend starting off with the first 3, Interview with the Vampire, Vampire Lestat, Queen of the Damned, and hopefully moving forward beyond those, because the twists and turns with the characters are just super fun, and they're just awesome to read about, and their growth is really interesting as well. Thank you for hearing me ramble on about vampires and these books. And if you want to collect them, most of them are readily available. Some of them are a little bit hard to find. You can find them in used bookstores if you don't feel like spending the full $25-30 on them. They don't have to be hardcovers. I do have a few paperbacks of them, but I wanted to be bougie since it's one of my favorite series. And I'm really glad that I completed all of them, and I'm ready to explore Anne Rice's other works as well. I have one called Violin, which is amazing. I have Servant of the Bones, and she has a few series about witches as well. Well, subscribe if you like what you see, if you like what you hear, and comment because I love talking to all of you, especially about vampires. And of course manga. We love manga on this channel as well. All of it behind me. With that being said, peace.